Logan stood still as the alien girl moved closer. Her silver skin shimmered under the soft lights of the alien hall. Her eyes were wide and glowing blue, like tiny stars floating in her face. He had never seen anyone like her before, and now, she was right in front of him without speaking a word. The guards behind her said nothing, just watched, as if waiting for something strange to happen. He thought she might speak, or offer her hand, or do some kind of bow, like in the welcome video they showed on the ship, but instead, she leaned forward slowly, her breath cool against his face, and then she licked his cheek from chin to temple. With one smooth motion, Logan blinked hard and stepped back, heart pounding, as her tongue left a warm trail on his skin. He reached up to wipe it off, but stopped halfway, unsure if that would be rude or not. The alien girl just looked at him, then gave a small nod and whispered something in her own language that he could not understand. The guards behind her stiffened, and one of them touched the handle of his weapon, not to threaten, but as if marking a moment. Logan noticed this and frowned, unsure what had just happened. He glanced around, hoping for someone to laugh, to say it was a joke, but no one did. No one smiled. The room had gone quiet, like something serious had just begun. Vela. That was her name, he remembered from the briefing, a highborn girl from one of the oldest houses on this world, not a leader yet, but someone with future power. She was known to be quiet, smart, and hard to read, and now she had licked him like he was food, or family, or something else he could not place. The room started to feel colder, or maybe it was just in his head. Logan tried to speak, but his voice came out dry. He cleared his throat, had asked softly what that meant, what she had done, but Vela did not answer right away. Instead, she turned and walked away, with her guards following her, as if everything had gone as planned, as if she had just completed a task. To alien soldiers stepped in front of him, then one spoke in broken English, saying, "Come with us, human. You must not walk alone now, not after that." Logan felt his stomach twist with a mix of confusion and fear. He followed because he had no choice, and because he wanted answers. They took him to a round room with soft lights and walls made of something that looked like glass but felt like stone. He was told to wait and given a drink that smelled sweet, but he did not touch it. He sat down on a soft chair and stared at the floor, running the moment again and again in his head. Why had she done that, and why did the others look at him like something big had happened? He had seen strange customs before, but nothing like this, nothing that made trained warriors pause and stare like they just saw history change. Time passed, maybe an hour, maybe more. Then an older alien entered the room. His skin was darker gray, his eyes slow and wise. He sat across from Logan and studied him for a moment before speaking, his voice low and even. "She has chosen you," the elder said flatly, and Logan shook his head. "Chosen me for what?" he asked. The elder looked at him, then spoke again. "Not for bond, not for joy, not for pleasure. She has chosen you for blood and honor." Leaned back in the chair. "What does that mean?" he asked. "What does the lick mean?" The elder closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them slowly, and said, "When one of her kind licks another in front of witnesses, it means they are now marked for war. Together." "War," Logan repeated, feeling the word hit his chest like a cold rock. "What war? Who are we fighting?" The elder did not answer directly. Instead, he said, "She carries an old anger, and now you carry it with her." Logan wanted to say no, wanted to say he did not agree to anything, but he stayed quiet. The elder stood and added, "She will speak to you again soon. Be ready for what comes." He walked out, leaving Logan alone with thoughts swirling like a storm in his head. He stood up, paced the room, looked at the walls, tried to calm his breathing, but it did not work. He was marked now by something ancient, by a ritual he did not understand, and the girl who did it had said nothing to help him, only looked at him with those glowing eyes, as if he should already know what came next. He went to the window, looked out at the alien city below. The sky above was purple with drifting clouds and flying shapes. He had come to this world for peace talks, for friendship and learning, but now it felt like something else entirely behind him. The door clicked open again, and a voice said softly, "She is ready to speak with you now. The time has come." And Logan turned slowly, heart pounding again, with no idea what the next words would bring, or what this girl had truly started with just one strange touch to his face. Logan followed the guard down the silent hallway, his boots soft against the strange stone floor. The air smelled faintly of something sweet and bitter, like crushed flowers and smoke. He tried to keep his thoughts steady, but his mind was running wild with questions, none of which had answers. Yet he had never been marked by anyone before, and now it felt like everyone knew something he did not. They passed alien soldiers, standing still like statues, their eyes following him as he walked. Some gave small nods, others looked away as if afraid to meet his gaze, and Logan could not understand why a simple lick on the cheek could change everything around him so quickly. It made no sense, yet the way they acted made it clear this was not something to joke about or forget. The guard stopped at a tall door, made of black stone. It opened on its own, revealing a round room, with soft blue lights, and a long seat covered in dark cloth. Vela stood near the center, her hands behind her back, her silver skin almost glowing under the lights. She did not look at him right away, only stared at the floor as if waiting for something more than just words. Logan stepped inside, unsure what to say, unsure if he should bow or speak first, but before he could decide, Vela turned her head slightly, and spoke, her voice soft and firm at the same time. "You are not like the others," she said. "You did not flinch or push me away, and that is why I chose you." Logan frowned and asked chose me for what. She walked closer, her eyes steady and calm, her fingers brushed against his arm as she passed, and she spoke again. "In my culture, when one of us licks another, it is a sign not of love, not of friendship, but of unity, in danger of trust. Before battle, it means I do not fear you beside me. When death is near, it means I will fight with you or die." With Logan stared at her, unsure if she was serious, but something in her face, something in the way her eyes held his told him. She was not playing, not testing him, not pretending. This was something real, something heavy, something old. "Why me?" he asked. "Why not one of your own people? Why not another warrior, someone trained for this, someone strong?" Vela smiled faintly, and said, "Because I have watched you, and I saw how you helped the wounded, and how you never asked for praise. I saw how you looked at this world, not with fear, but with wonder, and how you spoke gently even when you were unsure." She paused for a moment, then said, "My people need more than strength now. They need heart. They need someone who will not become a monster just to win. They need you, and I need you." Logan felt the weight of her words settle in his chest like a stone in water. He tried to speak, but could not find the right words, and Vela continued, "You are now part of this, whether you want to be or not. The mark has been seen, the rite has begun, and the old rules will not break for anyone, not even for a human from a far blue planet." He looked around the room, trying to process what she was saying, when another voice entered the space. It was the Elder again. His steps slow, his hands behind his back. He said, "The challenge has been accepted. Karoth has returned, and he seeks blood for the loss of his brother." Logan turned to him, confused. "Who is Karoth, and what does this have to do with me?" The Elder answered, "Karoth is the one who killed her brother years ago in a trial of honor, and now he has come to claim full victory. But Vela has answered his challenge by choosing a bondmate for combat. The fight must be 2 against 2, and you have been chosen as her blade brother." Blade brother. Logan repeated the words slowly, like they were sharp in his mouth. "I do not even know how to use your weapons. How can I fight in your war?" The Elder said, "You do not need to be perfect. You only need to stand with her and not run. That will be enough." Vela moved closer, her voice softer now. "I do not ask you to win. I only ask you not to leave me alone in the ring." Logan looked at her, then at the Elder, then at the black stone walls. He felt like the world was tilting and he was falling, and yet deep down, some strange part of him was not afraid. It was ready. "When does it happen?" he asked. The Elder answered, "Tomorrow at first light. You will be given armor and training. Until then, rest and prepare your mind for what is to come." Logan nodded slowly, then turned to Vela and said, "I will not run." And she gave him a quiet smile, the kind that holds both sorrow and strength. And he knew then that no matter what came next, the mark she gave him was not just a symbol, it was a promise, one he had now accepted with his whole being, whether he understood it or not. Sound like thunder rolled across the alien sky as the black ship broke through the clouds, its sharp wings cutting the air like blades. Logan stood at the window of the high tower, his hands tight against the railing, his eyes locked on the ship as it descended with slow, deadly grace. The sky turned darker, as if it too feared what had arrived. The ship landed without a word, without lights or music, only silence and the hiss of its engines cooling on the stone landing pad. Alien guards gathered below, forming a circle around the craft, their hands close to their weapons, but none dared draw. Vela stepped beside Logan without a word, her face calm, but her eyes cold. She pointed at the ship and whispered, "He has come for Mile." Logan turned to her, confused, still not ready to believe this was real, but her voice was firm, no longer soft like before. "Karoth has returned, and this time he wants more than a fight. He wants a name, a future, and a throne." Before Logan could respond, a deep horn sounded through the city. The Elders were calling the gathering. Every citizen, warrior, and student would come to witness what would follow. Vela stepped away from the window and motioned for Logan to follow. She did not explain, and he did not ask. Something in the air had changed. Something final. They walked through wide halls, past murals of past battles, stories carved into the walls with gold and black stone. The faces of heroes long gone watched them from the shadows. Logan felt their stares like pressure on his chest. He did not feel ready, not for battle, not for honor, not for history. Yet here he was wearing armor that was not his, walking beside a girl who had marked him with Wartha. Great chamber was already full when they arrived. Thousands stood in silence as the black doors opened, and Karoth entered, his body huge and covered in scars, his eyes like burning coals, his armor red and black with sharp edges. His presence made the air thick, made the ground feel less stable. Beside him walked another warrior, just as tall, just as grim. His second, his bond for the fight. Karoth walked to the center of the room and raised one hand, speaking in the deep tongue of the old tribes. His voice echoed through the chamber. I have returned to finish what was left undone. I killed the son now. I challenge the daughter. She may bring one to stand beside her, and if they fall, I will take her house, her name, and her future. Gasps ran through the crowd. Vela stepped forward without fear, her voice clear and proud. I accept your challenge, and I bring one to stand beside me, one who carries the mark and the will of his kind. She turned and pointed at Logan, and all eyes turned with her. Logan felt the weight of the moment fall on him like a mountain. He took one step forward, then another, until he stood beside her. The chamber went quiet again, as if the room itself was waiting for him to collapse, to refuse to run, but he did not. Karoth looked at him with a sneer, a human, weak, soft, and without glory. This is your shield, Vela. This is your blade. I will break him first. So, you must watch before you fall. Vela said nothing. Her hand brushed against Logan's for a brief moment, and it gave him something he did not expect. Not fear, not fire, but calm. He stared at Karoth and said in a quiet voice, maybe I am soft, but I do not break as easy as you think. The room stirred. The crowd began to whisper. The elders spoke in private. The choice had been made, and the fight was now bound by old law. It would happen in the arena of blades at dawn, and only one side would leave whole. Later that night, Logan sat alone in the war chamber, polishing the blade. They gave him its edge, shimmered with alien light. He had never used a sword before, not in real battle, but he held it steady, his hands shaking only a little. Vela entered without a sound, and sat beside him. She looked at the blade, then at him, then spoke. My brother died with honor, but I will not follow him into the dark, she said, and if I must drag death with me, I will not do it alone. Logan looked at her and said, then we will stand together, and if we fall as one. She reached out and touched his arm. Gently, not with heat, not with fear, but with something like truth. The air between them held no lies, only the silent understanding of those who had nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. Outside, the stars watched in silence, and the city waited for morning, when blood would spill and names would rise or vanish forever. The ground shook beneath Logan's boots as the great gates opened before him. The sound of metal grinding against stone filled the air and echoed across the city. The arena was larger than he imagined, a deep circular pit, carved from dark stones, surrounded by towers filled with watchers. The sky above burned with red morning light, and the air carried the weight of history and death. Logan stepped forward, his armor lighter than he thought, but strong enough to carry the hopes of a girl who trusted him with her life. The blade at his side pulsed faintly with a blue light, gifted by the elders, forged in a fire older than any human memory. He looked across the pit and saw Karoth waiting, tall, brutal eyes like fire. His second beside him, a shadow of muscle and bone. Vela walked beside Logan, silent as always. Her armor gleamed silver with red markings painted across her chest, the mark of her family, the mark of revenge. She looked ahead and did not blink, her breath slow, her focus complete. Logan wondered how she could be so calm, how she could face the one who killed her brother. And not Horn sounded from the high tower, and the crowd roared with it. Voices of every house, tribe, and outcast rose into the sky like thunder. The elders stepped forward and raised their staffs in silence. The rite was now sealed, and no one could stop what was coming. Logan's heart beat fast, but his hands did not shake. He could feel the eyes of thousands watching, waiting, expecting him to fail and fall and break. But he had made a promise to her, and that meant more than his fear, meant more than returning home. Aliv Karoth stepped forward and roared a challenge in his own tongue, then raised a massive blade etched with old symbols, stained from past kills. His second let out a low growl and drew twin axes, each curved like crescent moons. Vela did not speak. She only nodded once and drew her blade, a curved weapon, light and sharp, with a glow like starlight. Logan followed her into the center of the pit, the sand beneath his feet shifting with each step, soft but full of hidden stones, the kind that could twist an ankle or break a rhythm. Karoth moved like a beast, fast and brutal, and without hesitation. His second split off to face Logan, teeth, bared eyes. While Logan barely raised his blade in time, the axe slammed against it with force that rattled his bones. He stepped back, turned, dodged another swing. The alien was faster but not smarter. Logan used his smaller size to slip under a wide attack and land a hit across the leg, not deep, but enough to slow The crowd gasped, but Logan had no time to hear it. Another swing came down, and he rolled across the sand, jumped to his feet, and met it with a sharp block. His blade sparked as it struck the axe, but held strong. He remembered the training. The elder's voice telling him to stay light, stay quick, and trust the weapon on the other side of the pit. Vela and Karoth clashed like lightning against stone. Her blade moved in perfect circles, fast and deadly, but Karoth was power made flesh. Each of his strikes sent waves through the ground. He fought with rage and hunger, with the weight of old hate. She fought with purpose, with balance and memory. Logan landed a strike to the shoulder, and his opponent screamed, spun, and kicked him hard, sending him crashing to the ground, sand in his mouth, blood in his nose. He rolled aside as the axe came down, missing his chest by inches. He grabbed a nearby rock and threw it into the alien's face, then followed with a quick upward slash. The blade cut deep this time, across the stomach, and the alien dropped to one. Neither roar of the crowd was distant, like the sound of wind in dreams. Logan turned and saw Vela stumble. Karoth had broken part of her armor, her side bleeding, but her grip was still firm. Logan moved without thinking, crossed the pit, and slammed into Karoth from behind, using the last of his strength. Karoth staggered, turned and raised his blade, but it was too late. Vela drove her weapon through his chest clean and deep. The world held its breath as the great warrior fell to his knees, and then to the sand. Unmoving silence fell like a blanket. Then the arena exploded with sound. The crowd rose. The elders stood. The trial was over. The winners had been chosen, and the blood debt was paid. Logan dropped to one knee, gasping, his body sore, his hands shaking, but still holding the blade. Vela knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder, her eyes locked on his. She did not smile, but in her silence there was something stronger than joy, something like pride. The fight was over, but Logan knew deep down this was only the beginning of something far greater than he had imagined, something that would not end with victory alone. The wind howled through the ancient arena as the crowd began to leave, some cheering, some silent, some still staring at the fallen body of Karoth, his blood soaking into the silver sand. The sky above turned dark, a cloud swirling like a warning, as Logan sat hunched over his knees, shaking, not from fear but from something heavier, something deeper than he had ever known before. Vela stood beside him, unmoving, her blade now silent in her hand, her armor cracked and stained with blood, both hers and Karoth's. She looked down at Logan, not as a leader, not as a warrior, but as something else, something harder to explain. Her fingers reached toward his face and wiped the blood from his cheek. Then she spoke softly in a voice filled with both pain and pride. You stood when you could have run, you bled when you could have stayed safe, and now you carry the fire with me. Logan tried to speak, but his voice failed him. All he could do was nod as she took his hand and pressed it to the wound on her side. Her blood warm against his skin, she whispered old words in her native tongue, each syllable sharp and slow and full of weight. Then she took his hand and dragged one line of her blood across his chest, just over the heart. The crowd gasped. Those who remained fell quiet. The elders rose from their seats and bowed their heads. Vela had just completed the rite of flame, a binding older than war itself, a bond of purpose and legacy, one that could not be undone even by death. Logan did not understand every word, but he felt the meaning like fire under his skin. Two guards stepped forward, offering cloth and water, but Vela waved them away, her eyes never leaving Logan. You are now more than a fighter, she said. You are my echo, my shield, my blade, when I cannot lift mine, and my voice when I must be silent. Logan stood slowly, every muscle aching, every breath heavy. He looked around at the watching faces, some angry, some afraid, some full of wonder, and knew he would never again be just a visitor, just a guest from Earth. He had become something more, not by choice, but by the bond of blood and fire. That night the fires in the city burned brighter than ever before, the streets alive with chants, drums, and songs. Not all were joyful, some were warnings, some were angry, some called for old laws to be broken, others demanded new ones be made. The death of Karoth had shaken more than pride, it had cracked the foundation of an ancient system. Logan and Vela walked through the quiet halls of the high tower guards, watching from a distance. Torches flickering against the walls, they did not speak for a long time, until finally Logan asked, what happens now? Vela stopped in front of a tall door, carved with the symbol of her house, a flame wrapped in wind, and said, now they will come for us, not all, but some. Those who followed Saroth, those who fear change, those who want power more than peace. They will try to break what we built. Logan frowned, then looked down at his chest, where her blood still marked his skin, and asked, what if I cannot fight again? What if I fall in the next battle? Vela turned and placed a hand on his chest, then said, then I will fight for you as you did for me. We are one now, not just in battle, but in purpose behind The tall door was a chamber filled with weapons and scrolls and books older than any human age. Vela led him to a small altar where a flame burned without smoke, without sound. She took a piece of cloth, dipped it in the flame, and handed it to him. Hold this, she said. If it burns you, then your path is not ready. If it warms you, then you are bound by truth. Held the cloth, waiting for pain, waiting for fire, but it only felt warm, steady like the sun on his skin, and he nodded without a word. Vela smiled for the first time, a real smile, not one of victory, but of something rare and quiet, like trust. At night, as the city settled and the fires dimmed, Logan stood on the high tower and looked out over the land that had become his battlefield, and maybe his home. Stars blinked above, strange and beautiful and endless, and in the silence, he thought not of Earth, not of return, but of the path ahead, a path marked in blood, lit by fire and bound by the choice to stand when he could have run. The night was heavy with silence, but it was not the peaceful kind. It was the silence that held its breath before the strike, the kind that made every shadow feel alive, every whisper carry weight. Logan stood near the outer wall of the tower, his blade resting across his back, eyes scanning the horizon. Even though he knew the danger was no longer out there, it was inside. Vela had warned him, after the ritual, after Kairoth's fall, after the city sang, and wept, and bled in the same breath. She told him, not everyone accepted the outcome, not everyone bowed to the fire, some still followed the old warrior's bloodline and believed the bond between human and warrior was a stain, not a sign of strength. Logan stepped through a quiet corridor, where the lightstones flickered dimly. The walls seemed to close in tighter. With every step he could feel something in the air, something watching, something waiting. He had learned to trust that feeling over the past days, learned that silence was never just silence. In this place then came the soft scrape behind him like steel on stone, a breath to close the flick of movement to his left. Logan spun and raised his blade just in time to catch the strike of a dagger meant for his spine. The assassin snarled, a masked figure cloaked in dark fabric and blades, each strike faster than the last. Logan blocked once, twice, stumbled, then rolled across the floor. The enemy lunged again and again, but Logan had been trained by Vela herself. Not long, but long enough to know when to hold and when to move. He kicked the attacker hard in the chest, sending them into the wall, then disarmed them with a sharp twist, and drove his blade into their leg, just deep enough to stop the fight. More footsteps came echoing through the hall, but they were not enemies. Vela appeared with 2 guards, her eyes burning like ice. She looked at the assassin, then at Logan, then at the wound in the wall, and the blood on the floor. She said one word, betrayed. The guards seized the assassin and dragged them away. Vela stepped closer to Logan and said softly, this will not be the last. They feared the bond more than death, and some would rather die than see a human rise among us. Logan wiped the sweat from his brow and said, then let them come. I am not leaving. Her expression did not change, but she nodded once and replied, good. Because we have no time for running. The council meets at dawn, and they want answers. They want to question the blood, right? They want to strip my name of its power. She led him through narrow halls, to a chamber guarded by silent warriors. Inside were scrolls, maps, blades, each marked with the seal of her house. She pointed to a star map on the far wall, showing out her camps. Regions still loyal to Kairoth's legacy, small fires glowing red across the black space, each one a future threat. We will not wait for them to strike, she said. We must move before they gather more strength. But first the council must be broken, not with war, not with blades, but with truth, and you must speak. Logan frowned, unsure what she meant. I am not one of you, he said. Why would they listen? Vela stepped closer and placed her palm over his heart. They will listen because you bled for me, and because you are something they cannot ignore. A voice not born here, but made here by fire. That night, Logan stood before the council, a ring of ancient leaders seated in silence, their faces carved with age and pride, each one watching him, as if he were a puzzle or a threat. He told them what he saw in Vela, how she fought not for power, but for balance, how she trusted him when she did not need to, and how her people needed more than warriors. They needed change. He spoke of the battle, the silence before the strike, the warmth of her blood, and the promise they made in the arena. He spoke not like a warrior, not like a ruler, but like a man who had seen truth in another, and stood beside it. The council did not speak for a long time. Then one elder said, if you are truly part of us, then you must prove it, not just with words, not just with scars, but with choice. Asked what choice, and the elder replied, we are sending you to the Temple of Ancestors, where our greatest warriors go to be judged. If you pass, you are one of us. If you fail, then your fire ends. Herovella's face tightened, but she said nothing. Logan nodded without hesitation, and said, then show me the path. I will walk it, and I will not walk alone outside. The wind carried the drums of the old ones, calling the fires awake once more, and the path ahead opened not with light, but with shadow and truth. waiting to see if the human truly belonged to the flame, or if he would vanish like smoke before the storm. The sky above the temple was black and endless. No stars, no moon, just darkness so deep it seemed to breathe. Logan stood at the edge of the stone bridge that stretched over a river of glowing mist, his armor lighter than before, his blade no longer sharp, but carved with symbols given to him by Vela. Before he left, her hands had trembled for the first time, when she tied the red thread around his wrist and whispered, "Return, or I will burn the stars to find you." Now he faced the Temple of Ancestors. A place no outsider had entered, a place where only blood and memory could speak. The stone doors opened without touch, without sound, and Logan stepped through without looking back. The warmth of her thread pressed to his skin with every heartbeat inside the temple. Everything was quiet but alive. The walls whispered names in an old tongue. The air carried voices of warriors. Long dead shadows moved with no shape, and the floor beneath him glowed with his every step. Then a figure appeared, not made of flesh but of fire and dust. It looked at him, and spoke not with sound, but with thought. "Why do you walk the path of warriors? Not your own. Why do you bleed for a people not born from your blood?" Logan answered, with no lies, "Because she believed in me before. I believed in myself, because I saw the broken pieces they hide behind honor and strength, and I chose to stand not for power, not for pride, but for the promise I made with her hand in mine." Figure nodded, then split into many, all glowing, all watching, each one a memory of what her kind once were. Warriors, teachers, lovers, traitors, all of them circling him, asking the same question: "Will you burn with us, or walk away while the fire still lives in your chest?" Logan stepped forward, placed his hand into the flame at the center of the chamber, and did not flinch. The fire wrapped around his arm, wrapped around his chest, filled his eyes with stars and pain and silence, and when it vanished he was still standing, not untouched, not unharmed, but chosen. The temple opened behind him, not to the bridge but to the sky, and Vela was there, waiting, her eyes wide as she saw the fire mark on his chest. Her hands reached out, but stopped just short, as if afraid he was only a dream. He took her hand and placed it on the mark, and said, "I walked the fire, I heard them all, and I came back, not as guest, not as shadow, but as one of flame." She pulled him close, not with hunger, not with need, but with something ancient and quiet, something born from blood and war and choice. And in that moment, the silence broke, not from them, but from the skyships dark and wide, appeared above the horizon. Koroth's followers, not gone, but hidden, until now. The city bells rang, the towers lit up, and the people ran to their posts, fear rising with the wind. Vela turned toward the sound, and whispered, "It begins now, not with trial but with truth." They rushed to the high tower, where the council waited. Already shouting, already divided, some calling for retreat, others for surrender. But Vela stepped into the firelight with Logan beside her, and raised her blade, not in threat, but in promise. She spoke one word: unity, and then silence. Logan stepped forward, and showed them the mark, the fire still glowing softly beneath his skin, and said, "You wanted proof, now you have it. I stand not as human, not as outsider, but as the echo of your past and the hand of your future. Fight with us, not because of fear, but because you still believe in what made your people great. Not their strength, but their will to choose what is right over what is easy." The council did not bow, but they stepped aside one by one, and the people followed. Drums filled the streets, warriors took up arms, but this time they stood beside humans, beside traitors, beside scholars, beside any who chose fire over silence. When the enemy landed, they found a city, not of weakness but of flame. They found warriors, not born of one world, but of one cause. They found Vela leading from the front, and Logan at her side, blade high, voice strong, no longer the lost soldier, no longer the marked guest, but the flame that would not go out. The battle was long and full of shadow, but they did not fall. They did not bend, and when the last ship burned above the tower, and the last blade dropped to the stone floor, the sky cleared, and the stars returned. That night, Logan stood on the same bridge where he began the path, looking out at the firelights across the land. Vela stepped beside him, silent as always, but her hand found his, and held tight. He asked her, "What does the lick mean now?" And she smiled without words, leaned closer, and rested her head on his shoulder, where the fire still burned gently, and said, "Now it means you are home."